Hello and welcome to another episode of our Ringspann brake product videos. Today I will talk about a solution to eliminate the change of the gear flanks within a main hoist gearbox. So stay tuned to find out more. In container handling, it's all about speed and crane availability. Of course, we always want to make sure that we are securely stopping the load, but what we also see is that there can be negative impacts from the brakes on the main hoist gearbox. Especially a change of the gear flanks during a category 0 e-stop is a very critical incident. The last thing that we want to happen is that the terminal operator has to replace the gearbox on a main hoist on a container crane. The root cause for that is quite easy to explain. On a crane there are always two different types of brakes installed. One type is a so-called service brake on the high-speed side, and the other one would be the emergency brake on the low-speed side. One brake always closes first, and depending on the situation, if we're lifting or lowering, this can lead to the situation that the gear teeth are losing contact to each other. So to avoid this unwanted effect, you have to make sure that you are braking on the opposite side of the driving force first. So for a lifting situation, the driving force is the motor itself, so in this case we would have to brake on the low speed side first. For the lowering situation, however, the driving force is the load itself, so you have to brake on the motor side first. To avoid a flank change, we have to make sure that the emergency brakes and the service brakes always set in the correct order. That means if we have a lifting situation, the emergency brakes have to set first, and for a lowering situation, the service brakes have to set first. The solution that we provide makes sure that you always have the gear teeth in connection with each other. Interestingly, these parts that you are going to see are something that you already have on your crane. One difference, the thruster that we are using is somehow special. All elements of the system that we are going to look at are very familiar for port operators all around the world. So we are going to have service brakes, a thruster, emergency brakes, hydraulic power unit, and as a special, very small, very compact control box. So the whole setup of the components that we are using for that system is very easy and simple to explain. We're having an electro-hydraulic service brake with a thruster and an emergency caliper brake. That's basically it. The only secret or the special thing about the thruster is that we are ensuring two different setting times that can be pre-selected. So let's take a closer look at the thruster. The thruster itself is pretty much standard with one exception. In the tank return line, where the oil flows back when you want to close the brake, there is a so-called lockable seat valve. This seat valve makes sure that you can pre-select two different flowback channels of the hydraulic fluid inside of the thruster. One flowback channel makes sure that the brake sets very fast, ensuring that the service brake sets before the emergency brake. The other flowback channel is equipped with a very small delay unit like a throttle valve that makes sure that the service brake brakes after the emergency brake has closed. So, how do we make sure that we are always braking at the right time? Well, actually it's pretty easy because we have the so-called lockable seat valve, and the only thing that we need to make sure that this valve is in the right position is the information if the crane is lifting or if it's lowering. Let's take a closer look what happens inside of the gearbox for the different driving situations. So if we have a lifting situation, you can see that if we are braking on the high speed side first, that the low speed side of the complete drive shaft is still able to rotate. So that means if we make sure that we are braking on the low speed side first, there's no more movement of the gear teeth to each other possible, so the complete system is locked. Basically the same scenario we are having for the lowering situation. So the load itself is basically the reason why a movement is happening, and the motor is just following that movement. So in this case the driving force is the load itself. So the good or the best situation would be when we are braking on the motor side first, because this way we can make sure that the gear teeth are always in connection with each other. However, if you're braking on the low speed side first, you will see that the high speed side is still able to rotate. And this is what we want to avoid, because then the gear teeth would lose contact with each other for a very short moment of time. That's what we want to avoid, that's what we don't want to have. So we always have to make sure that we are braking on the motor side first for that movement. So let's summarize what we learned in today's video. So basically it's pretty easy. What we want to achieve is that the gear teeth of the gearbox are always staying in contact with each other. So how do we do that? Pretty easy. We have to make sure that we're always braking on the right side of the drivetrain first. And the right side is always opposite of the driving force. Driving force for the lifting situation is the motor, so we have to brake on the low speed side first. For the lowering situation, it's the other way around. So we have to brake on the high speed side first because it's just following the movement of the load itself. Thanks for stopping by for our latest Ringspann brake product video. Stay tuned for the next one.